everyone who's tuned in right now. I'm Marin. I work at the CDA National Office in Ottawa with my lovely team. And today we're going to be tackling all of the great sun awareness questions that you guys may have, as it has been Sun Awareness Month throughout the month of May. So just as a disclaimer before you guys start submitting some of your questions, I do want to say, please keep your questions to be quite general. So we don't, unfortunately, have the time to be answering any personal medical questions. So if you have any of those, please consult your own personal health care provider, and then they should be able to tend to those. So I'm just going to be handing it off to our two lovely derms. We have CDA past president, Dr. Carrie Purdy, and our lovely current Sun Awareness Working Group member, Dr. Julia Carroll. I'll pass it over to you two.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
How do we want to
Julia,
start?
I brought some of my sun safety
Oh, you have
accoutrements.
props. I don't have props.
I brought props so we could talk about some of the sun safety things.
Okay, well, I have a question for you. What's your take on sunglasses? What are your favorite kind of sunglasses for protecting yourself?
That's a great question, Julia. And I have about 12 pairs of sunglasses, and I have them with me at all times. So I think one of the key things that you want is a pair of sunglasses is definitely going to cover your eyes. And oftentimes you can see if they're polarized or not polarized, and you can make sure that they have good coverage and that they're a reliable type of sunglasses. But there's so many options, and I think, you can really add a fashion statement to your day by wearing great sunglasses.
I think that's true. I love ones that have big, thick arms on the side that protects the so you got the big, it protects the side, the skin, and also doesn't let light in.
That's another good point.
Yeah. And I think you have lots of sunglasses. I am a big collector of hats. So every time we go away on vacation, I buy another hat, and my husband says, "Really? Do you need another hat?" I'm like, "Oh, but this one is like, it's wider, or it's got cute colors, or it's got better UPF."
That's right. And what do you think are the key features of a hat? Like, what are you looking for when you get a hat?
Well, I think it really depends. So I think you have to be practical. As much as I would like to think that I live, on the southern coast of France, I don't really think it's practical for me to wear a huge brimmed hat every day. Although I do really tend to gravitate towards those hats. But I think things you want to look for are a wide brim. So you want it to be able to cover, the front of your face. You want it to cover your ears. I think as women, we, at least, depending on your hairstyle, but for my hairstyle, I think yours, Carrie, too, you often get the ears covered, although I do tend to, again, gravitate towards a ponytail on the weekend. So those ears are, those ears are showing.
Exposed.
Yeah. And then I think it's also good if you're doing an activity, you've got something that has a little cord on it that can keep the hat, especially for the little ones. I think that's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. My kids have had those.
Yeah.
I think we have a question.
Okay, great.
I think your first question, I just saw it here in the inbox. So one of the first questions is sunscreen for rosacea prone skin. What are your thoughts on that?
You want to take it to start, Carrie?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to start with this, and then I think you can probably add some of your tips. So I think rosacea prone skin can be a little bit tricky because some people with rosacea do find that their skin is more sensitive to a variety of products. And so when I talk to people about sunscreen, I say really what we want to do is get you something that's going to be good, broad spectrum coverage that you're going to put on your face. I like an SPF 50 or higher for the face. And so many times patients with rosacea will tolerate something like one of the organic blockers or something that has zinc and titanium because it tends to be a little bit less irritating. And so there's lots of great options in that realm. And so oftentimes I'll recommend that for rosacea prone skin. But that being said, some people can tolerate other products as well. There's lots of great facial moisturizers that do make sunscreens, and those are really useful as well for people with rosacea. And then some of the higher brand, very elegant sunscreens are also very well tolerated in patients that have rosacea. But you don't have to spend a fortune on sunscreen, right? Like you really have to get one that you're going to put on and that it covers ultraviolet A and B.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I would add in would be for people that have rosacea, they're often, trying to cover up some persistent redness. So I like to offer a tinted sunscreen as well, and that adds a little bit of extra protection as well from visible light because it has oh shoot, I just forgot the word, iron oxide in it.
Iron oxide.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna make it easier for you too, because I'll read out some of these questions. They're coming on in. So another question that the same follower submitted is foundation with SPF enough? I know this is a question.
No way, not at all. So it's great. You know, if you use it, if you have foundation that has a little bit of sun protection in it, fine. It's a little extra layer, but you are not going to put on the same thickness and amount of foundation unless, you know, you're putting on like theater makeup. You're not going to put on the same amount as you would if you were putting on sunscreen. So, no.
And I think most foundations only have an SPF 15 or 20 at the most. And like I said, really you're looking for 50 plus for the face, not only for, you know, protection for sun damage, but also fine lines, wrinkles, all those kind of things are really related to sun exposure. And so if you can minimize that, the more you do that, the happier you'll be. I mean, I'm 90 and you can barely tell. Kidding.
Great. What about sun protection on airplanes? That's another great question we just received.
Julia, you're a frequent flyer. Why don't you take this one?
No, there's actually been lots of studies, or at least one that I know of, a study that came out that showed that pilots have a higher risk of skin cancer from sitting with the windscreen all day long. You know, we know that ultraviolet light does go through windows, particularly the ultraviolet A. So when I am on a plane, well, first of all, I usually put the window down because I want to watch a movie. But if I am going to have the window open, I will put on sunscreen. And I think that's important to know. A window is a window. And if you think about it, in the sky, you're actually that much higher to the sun.
That's very true, actually. I didn't even think of that. Good answer. So another one we have is, what is the safest way to get vitamin D from the sun? That's a fantastic question.
To not get it from the sun. Ding. So there's lots of ways that you can get vitamin D. And so vitamin D rich foods, supplementation with vitamin D, these are really probably safer ways to get vitamin D than getting it from the sun. People do inherently get a little bit of vitamin D through their skin, even when they're sun protected. But certainly we don't think that going out without sun protection is a good way to get vitamin D, because when you balance out the risk and the benefit, really it's much more beneficial to get your vitamin D through the mouth, I guess.
Right. And if you really care about vitamin D that much, you want it to be a reliable, consistent dose of vitamin D that you're getting. And so I think an oral supplement is the best way to do that. I prefer the gummy version because it feels like a treat.
And I prefer the chocolate flavored chewable version because it also feels like a treat.
What brand is that? I've never heard of that.
It's a Jameson version.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
You get your vitamin D and your calcium
flavors.
Time.
That's right.
I like to snack.
You like to snack, don't we all though? Comes with vitamin D, even better. I have another question. So are children more susceptible to developing a reaction to sunscreen? That's a good one.
You know, I don't think so. There is certainly a marketing. So the reason why the name that goes on, the thing that goes on sunscreen will say baby sunscreen or children's sunscreen, is like absolutely just a marketing situation, and it has to do with how things are stored in the drugstore. So Shoppers has a baby aisle, and if you want it to be in baby aisle, then it has to say baby on it. But for the most part, those sunscreens are the same sunscreens that you'll find in the adult aisle. Now there are a few sensitive skin sunscreens that may be found in the baby aisle, but you probably also find them in the adult aisle. It just says sensitive, not for baby sensitive skin. So it just has to do with, you know, manufacturers rightly trying to get their products on as many eye levels as possible.
Awesome. Just trying to search for another one here. Okay, this one, I think this is from the same follower. We have, so there's a difference between sport and water resistant sunscreen. So I think they're asking, so is there a difference between sport and water resistant sunscreen?
So when it comes to sport sunscreen, oftentimes those are they're branded in the same way that Julia was just talking about sunscreens
Mm.
being branded for babies or branded for whatever. And so typically speaking, the ingredients are very similar. Way back when I was a kid, you could buy waterproof sunscreen, and we know that sunscreens don't tend to be waterproof. And so instead, we use the terminology of water resistant. And so many sunscreens will say water resistant up to 80 minutes. But that being said, generally in dermatology, we recommend that if you've been for a swim or you've been really wet or sweaty and you've toweled off, that you often remove a lot of that skin sunscreen that's on your skin. And so you do really want to reapply. And so putting something on and going, oh, I'm good for the day, I'm going for a 1 hour swim, and then I'm all set. Really, that's probably not a great safe practice. But to answer the question, sport can be water resistant, but also non-sport sunscreens can be water resistant.
Okay, so they can kind of, it just depends on how they're labeled essentially.
Yeah, and I was going to make a comment about the last question about baby sunscreens, and I totally agree with what Dr. Carroll said. And I think the other thing is a lot of times when you're looking at that difference in sunscreen, is it organic or is it non-organic? Many of the baby-related or children-specific sunscreens are the organic type. And so if you look at some of the bigger brands, they'll have that organic sunscreen or that mineral-based sunscreen in the baby type, but you can certainly use it if you're not a baby, obviously. So that's something where if you're looking for a mineral or if you're looking for an organic sunscreen, often going to the baby section is where you'll find it.
You know what? I would just jump in just with a really good tip here is for me, Carrie and I are both moms, and I love stick sunscreens for kids. I think it's an awesome way to get them involved. Like, it's hard to get it on. They don't like you rubbing it in, but a stick you can get on yourself, and when they get a little bit older, they can put it on themselves, and it's one of my favorite sunscreens for kids, at least for that base.
Totally. My kids have them in their backpacks so that if at recess time or lunchtime or the end of the day, if they're still there and it's sunny, they know to put it, nose, ears, cheeks, to at least sort of touch up that area again. So I love the stick sunscreens as well.
That's a really good tip. What are some of the brands that you guys use, or no, is it usually clear or like a cream-based sunscreen?
They tend to be a bit more clear. Yeah, they tend to be clear. I mean, some of them are more white, and also the stick sunscreens are amazing for runners or people that are athletic, because they always say it runs in their face, and the sticks are a bit more waxy. So I think that's also why kids like those sunscreens, is because they don't tend to run in their face. There's lots of brands. I mean, basically the good thing about Canada is if you go to a major drugstore, you pick up a sunscreen, you can also look for the CDA symbol on it. They're all safe, and they're all great sunscreens.
Agree.
Okay, we have another one here. Is it true that a base tan will help you not burn in the future?
Can we make the steam coming out of our heads emoji? Like, no.
Who's going to take it and who's going to be angrier?
Doesn't matter to me. You take this one, Julia.
Okay, well,
let's hear your speech.
I think that we know that the base tan gives you approximately an SPF of 4, maybe, but the way you're getting that 4 is by damaging your skin. So the base tan is complete fallacy, given that, Dr. Cordy and I are talking about recommending SPFs of 50. If the base tan gives you a 4, that's not enough. And again, just like the vitamin D story, like, you don't want to, if something you're trying to do to help yourself actually harms you in the long run, it's not helpful. But anytime you see color on your skin, like any kind of tan, it's basically your skin saying, like, ouch, you hurt me. I'm going to try to put up a protective layer so you don't hurt me anymore. Like, one of the things I'll say to patients sometimes is, if I gave you a cream and then you went home and you put it on and it turned your skin really red and it was sore and hot, and then the next day it turned brown, you'd be on the phone to me, like, first thing, 8 o'clock in the morning, saying, what did you give me? So why do we think that when this happens in the sun that this is good for us? It's not.
No. That's a really good point, Julia. And, I think it's important that sometimes people only think they're getting sun damage if they get a burn. But we know, and this is what I tell them too, I said, if you're getting a tan, you have tan lines, you're still having sun damage. You're just not having that really aggressive, painful burn that's reminding you it's sun damage. But it's the same at the end of the day.
Good point. We all need to learn, eh? How about Is sunscreen only for summer or equally important for sunny, snowy days? That's a good question.
Oh, excellent question. And it
Mhm.
is equally, if not more important, on sunny, snowy days, because I think people through the summer have a tendency to go, you know what, it's a nice day. I'm putting on my sunscreen. I'm getting my hat. I'm getting my glasses. I'm going to stay in the
Mhm.
shade. But they don't have that tendency to do that when it's cold outside. And so the way I like to think about it, since I'm out here on the East Coast and we get a lot of crazy days where it's sunny and hot and snowy, not only in those days are you getting the sun UV direct from the sun, but you're also getting that reflection off of the snow. So you're kind of getting a double hit.
Hmm.
And then people really have a tendency to kind of not think about it. So I make a point of putting sunscreen on my face every day of the year. It's the first thing I put on. I wash my face, put on my sunscreen, put my makeup on over top, and go about my day. And so I think it is, yeah, definitely important as well. Cloudy days, don't forget that cloudy day. That's when people get burns and they didn't put on sunscreen because they thought, oh, it's not sunny. So you don't need the sun to get ultraviolet. So you got to be really careful when you're going outdoors.
Yeah, it's those like just slightly overcast or the first sunny spring day of the year where everybody comes in the next week with a sunburn,
Yes. Yes.
except the dermatologists.
I got another one here. Is tanning necessary to get your natural vitamin D? Ooh.
We already answered that one.
Yes. So for that person, if they just joined us, no. We are we are in support of getting your vitamin D from food and supplements.
Yes.
Oh, this is a really good one. I'm actually curious about this myself. Patients ask, are powder mineral type sunscreens effective?
So I can grab this one. I love them for touch-ups. I don't like them for a base because again, I don't think you're probably applying enough to get the full SPF 50 that we think is important. So if you put on your base sunscreen, like I wake up every morning, doesn't matter what time of day it is or what the weather is, my sunscreen goes on. If I'm going to be out, outdoors, meeting someone on a patio or doing an outdoor activity, then I love those to touch up, and because I know my base is still there.
Agree. They're very easy to throw in your purse and kind of pull out and give yourself a touch up. But they really do. They are more of an enhancement than a good base.
Yeah.
Do they last long on the skin? Like, would they come off? Like some sunscreens
It's
last
a,
longer than.
yeah, it's a powder, and they're approved. They have met the requirements to have the numbers they have. But and because basically I think the way that it's like a talc powder, it will probably with your natural oils, gets into the skin. So I think they would last. But I just get a little bit concerned about depending on that as your full coverage.
Great. Just looking for another question here. Quite a bit. I know I got a question that came in. I'm hearing about nanoparticles in sunscreen. Is that safe if they have it?
So there's a lot of information lately, or there's a lot of buzz, I guess, around different sunscreens and what about nanoparticles and how much do you absorb? And we do know that when you put something on your skin, a certain amount does get absorbed. And the bigger question that's going to be answered is, does it matter? Does it mean anything? Is it what we would call clinically relevant? And so that's currently what a lot of investigations going into, just saying, like, let's get some longer term information. Let's try to gather more data. But at the end of the day, the balance towards having good sun protection and preventing from the very bad skin cancers that can kill you tend to outweigh the potential risk that we really haven't proven with things like nanoparticles. And so, there's people will tell you different things, but I think right now it's a challenge to kind of be very definitive, but there will be more information in the coming months to years.
Yeah. The nice thing about the nanoparticles is it actually does make the higher SPFs more cosmetically elegant, and it also makes them more cosmetically elegant for all the different skin types, because that's been a problem in the past where people with darker skin types get that white cast. So nano are one of the ways that the sunscreens are more cosmetically acceptable.
Absolutely.
I have another one. I think it's pertaining to moles or more so post sun damage. What about a spot that you can scratch off but keeps coming back? Should this be checked out?
I don't know. Are we supposed to be answering medical information on this one?
I guess what we could do instead, Julia, is maybe we could give some tips on what kind of spots maybe should go be seen by a doctor. So what do you
want to go through the
patients?
ABCDs?
I can go through the ABCDEs for
We
sure.
could go back and forth.
Yeah, so let's go through the ABCDEs. So when we talk about malignant melanoma, which is the dangerous kind of skin cancer, we have a little mnemonic and we say, the ABCDEs. And so A stands for asymmetry. I tell people you want your mole kind of to be like a pie. And if you cut it in half, it's the same on both sides. And so you want it to be symmetric. We don't like asymmetry.
So B is for border, and you want the border to be well defined. So you want a crisp pie, if we're going to carry on that metaphor. You don't want a pie that has the juice leaking out on the side. So you want to be able to see exactly where the mole stops and normal skin begins. And if you're not sure if it's blurry or there's a little pod coming off of it, then that can be a concern.
C is for color. And so we like things to be one color, very uniform. So if it's a pie, it's baked very evenly. In terms of things that are color variable, so if you're seeing pink and brown and black and white together, that needs to be checked out.
And then D is for diameter. So if something is getting larger in diameter, then that could be a concern. A good guide is 6 millimeters. And if you can remember back in the days when we had pencils with erasers on it, it's about the size of the end of a pencil eraser.
And finally, E stands for evolution. I personally think that this one is one of the most important ones to think about. And so if you have a mole or a spot forever and you notice that it starts to change, or you get a new spot out of the blue that looks weird and different than your rest, E is evolution. We don't like things to be evolving. And so those all should be checked out. Yeah, I think that's important that we talk about those ones too.
Awesome. Those are all the touch points of that. Fantastic. I have another question. How long before exposure to the sun, the sun should, okay, I'm rereading it. How long before exposure to the sun should you put sunscreen on?
This is a good question, because if you read the label, it will say you have to wait, I think, is it half an hour before you go outside or 20 minutes? But this is, so again, sunscreen is defined as a drug, and there's all these parameters, and it has to do with how the sunscreens are tested. So the companies have to put this on their product because it's part of how the sunscreen was initially tested. But when you put that sunscreen on, you're ready to go outside. The sunscreens of today, they start to work right away. So I would never want somebody to think, oh, I'm running out right now, and so I'm not going to put my sunscreen on because I don't have 20 minutes to wait. Put it on, it will start working right away.
That's great. Because they used to say you would have to put it on and then wait 20 minutes before you could do anything. Now,
well, we used to have to wait 20 minutes after we ate lunch before swimming too. So
because you would get cramps. I wanted to make a point too that there are some other things, when we're talking about the other sun safety practices. So you don't have to wait 20 minutes to put your hat on, which you don't for your sunscreen either. But don't forget your hat, your sunglasses, sun protective clothing, UPF 50 plus clothing is also something that we haven't really talked about yet, and I think can really be an extra added layer. So in COVID, we're all used to added layers of protection. Another added layer of sun protection can be UPF clothing, and I have a lot of it, as do my kids. And so it's something else that if you're kind of thinking, oh, it's the middle of the day, I'm feeling a little exposed here, I throw on my UPF shirt, my sun shirt, and it really helps.
There's great bathing suits now that are long sleeve that zip up, and I love it if I'm in the water, if we're going snorkeling. I actually prefer that over sunscreen, because if you're out and you've got your back exposed for a long period of time, it's just much safer.
Agree.
And the same follower also asked in that same section, how long before I can put my makeup on? I'm assuming after sunscreen was applied.
I put it on
as long as it takes you to put down your sunscreen and pick up your makeup. Immediate.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Okay, let me find another one. This is a good one. I have no clue what this even means, so you can explain. Is hydroxyapatite?
I don't know what that means either. I mean,
calcium
hydroxyapatite is a
No.
dermal filler. So I don't know. I've never seen that as a sunscreen ingredient. I will Google that afterwards, but I think it's a filler.
It's a
It's a
filler.
whole other topic.
Yeah, I've never seen that ever before in my sunscreen. Okay, good question though. Let me look through. Um, keep keep the questions coming, everyone, if you have any more. I don't think I can.
What about Carrie? Do you have any tips for ways to apply sunscreen to make it easy for people?
That's a great question, Julia. And I like to tell people really what they should be using. And so, to cover your face, you need about a teaspoon of sunscreen. To cover your body, you need 2 to 3 tablespoons, or since I'm a maritimer, a shot glass full. And so I always tell people, you want to make sure you're putting it on all your areas too, because people have a tendency to forget. So personally, when I put on my own sunscreen, not to be TMI, but I tend to do it before I put on my clothes. And so
Do naked. That's the best advice.
So I put on my face. I don't forget my ears and the back of my neck. I put it all over my chest, my fronts and my backs of my arms. And then if I need someone to help me on the lower back, I get my husband. He's not quite as good at doing the application. And then hands, back, tops of hands, legs, tops of feet. You don't want to forget any of those areas. And then I get dressed.
Yeah, I think it's often those areas when people are trying to put it on with their clothes and they're sort of trying to sneak it in and not get their clothes goopy. I think that's where you run into like that common area right here where everyone gets burned. So yeah, I love the do it naked.
The way to do it.
Perfect. What is the difference between UVA and UVB protection? That's a good basic one.
So basically, SPF is speaking to UVB protection. In Canada, we don't actually call out UVA protection, but the way that we like with its own rating. So they're basically just for those who don't know, UVA is ultraviolet A, UVB is ultraviolet B, and they're the two types of rays that make up the damaging rays from the sun. And so the way that we've gotten around that is that it says broad spectrum. So if you see a sunscreen that says broad spectrum on it, you know that it covers enough of the spectrum of UVA and UVB to keep you protected. But technically, the SPF number is really only addressing UVB. In Europe, they have all these other ratings. We don't have those in North America. And I think with the broad spectrum, we do just fine.
I feel like we're starting to see a little bit of some of that branding where the UVA is circled. And I think that, that's maybe in Europe, but the way they say that you have photostable UVA if you've got a circle. But I think, Dr. Carroll made a really good point earlier, which is if you look for that CDA logo, you can rest assured that you're getting really good broad spectrum UVA and UVB coverage in whatever you're picking up.
Is it true we have to avoid sunscreen with titanium or zinc? This is a good question.
No.
Those
No?
those are the mainstays of physical sunscreens.
I mean, I think sometimes where these questions come from either have to do with the nanoparticle piece that we already touched on a little bit earlier. And the second piece is sometimes with respect to different areas in the world where there's coral reef. Occasionally there are some specific recommendations or requirements in those areas about what sunscreens you can and can't use. But in terms of like a blanket statement of avoiding titanium and zinc, absolutely not. That's what I use on my face every day.
Me too.
Look, are midday sun rays more dangerous than the evening ones?
There's certainly, we know the peak hours of sun are 11 to 3 p.m., particularly from March to October. I think what's actually more interesting is that that's ultraviolet B. Ultraviolet B is more intense in the summer, less intense in the winter, but ultraviolet A is the same wherever you live all year long. It doesn't change. So it's ultraviolet A level in Toronto is the same in December as it is in June.
And that's why you need your sunscreen all year round.
Every day and everybody is our saying.
Every day and everybody.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so it's 7:30. I'm just going to see if there's any last minute questions, and then I think we're good to wrap up. you have any more questions, anyone, please send them in the next minute or so. And otherwise,
This is great.
You can tell
I love
people
all the
if they
participation.
they're great questions, and if you do want more information, you can
They
always
are.
pop over to our website at dermatology.ca, and you can see lots of our sun safety tips. Spot your spots, how to check your skin, ways that you can make sure that you look at all of your skin. If you're by yourself, you've got a mirror, and you got 2 mirrors, you're good to go. And also just all of our information about sun protection. So,
and if anybody is up for a challenge, we're doing a TikTok challenge. Show me your sun safe without, or show me your sun safe. How does it go again?
Tell me your sun's
Sun
smart.
safe without sun smart without telling me your sun's smart. I know, it was my idea.
You've already done a fantastic version, Julia, so you already, you know it.
I know it, yeah. So it's really fun. You can do it on TikTok, or you can just run it through TikTok and post it on Instagram.
Exactly.
I'd love to see some creative ones. I had some ideas, but I didn't have time to do crazy things. But I think some of our budding and young dermatologists could probably come up with some awesome TikToks for our campaign.
absolutely.
If you want any inspiration, also go to checkyourskin.ca, as that's our campaign website. There's lots of inspiration there, as we've had previous week content, so preventative measures, and we've also had different content for how to perform a self-examination. So anything that is sun related, go to checkyourskin.ca. Thank you two, for showing up tonight. You did a fantastic job at answering everyone's questions and my own. And we really time you've taken.
Everyone enjoy the long weekend. Make sure you've got
Yes.
your hat, your sunglasses, your sunscreen, and your UPF clothing.
Yeah.
Seek the shade. Yeah, exactly. Have a great long weekend. Thanks everybody for the great questions. Get that
Thanks,
sunscreen
Barb.
out, put it on.
Bye, everyone.